Welcome back to the JMG Beat Show, guys. Today I'm with K9 and NoNameTim. Today we're going to be asking Tim a couple questions here and kind of just get the conversation going, and then we're going to be going through some beats.
Yes, sir. So it's K9, and I think we should catch up for like a couple minutes, see what
Yeah,
everyone's been saying, what kind of new
yeah.
stuff you guys are working on. No name Tim, you want to start it off?
What's up, fellas? Thanks for having me on first and foremost. I appreciate it. It's good to see both of you. I wish we could be doing this in the same room together, but
Right.
considering borders are still closed and things of that nature, we're stuck on the Zoom. But yeah, man, just been trying to stay creative, recently. As far as what I've been working on, a lot of stuff for Kofi, a lot of stuff for Trey West. I've been working with my buddy Lee Major a lot on some things. He's probably best known for producing for Rick Ross and MMG and Wale and um, uh, who else? Trey Songz.
Oh
He
wow,
just he
yeah.
just he just had a record on Bryson Tiller's anniversary album,
Yeah.
um, which is dope. But yeah, just been those have kind of been my main focuses, and just doing like a lot of collaborative stuff with other producers that I just really enjoy working with.
That's
Right,
sweet, man.
right. Solaris, you want to go next?
Yeah, I've just been doing the same old grinding beats. I got some stuff with Kofi coming on the way, a couple other artists, but yeah, I've just been grinding, man, making beats, doing my thing.
Right. Yeah. As for me, it's the same thing, day to day, you're just trying to make better beats every day, try to
Hmm.
find new bounces, new mixing styles, this and that. So I'm trying to just soak
Exactly.
in as much info as I can right now,
Yeah,
especially
That's
because we're inside all the time.
That's good. That's good. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a journey, right?
Right.
Like the whole like my process, 5 years ago, 10 years ago is totally different from what I do now.
Right.
And the
Yeah.
way like
yeah,
with all the little tidbits I've picked up and learned, whether it be from being in the room with other producers or engineers or like seeing stuff online. Like now, we're blessed with the ability to get on YouTube and like it's like, oh man, I
Right.
wonder how did so and so do this? Like you can probably find something similar to it, and like, but back
definitely.
when I first started, YouTube wasn't a
Right.
thing. So it's like I'm learning in the rooms as I go, which was a huge proponent of how I got my style and like the way I do things today.
Right. Yeah, that's sick, man. I just want to start off with a question here. I'm just wondering how you
Yeah.
two have been getting inspiration during COVID. I mean, we're inside all the time, and there's maybe a little bit less inspiration. But what have you guys found to be inspiring in times like this? Where do you go for inspiration these days?
For me, it's honestly working with other producers and collaborating.
Okay, dope.
Like I've got, whether I'm working with one of you, whether I'm sending stuff to you or you're sending stuff to me, um whether it's Lee, like I mentioned, or Marcus D Trey, or my buddy Morrico, or Miles T, like just guys, kind of like us communicating back and forth, even if it's not just like, oh hey, here's an idea, like you know let's work on this together, even if it's just like a text conversation, and it's hey man, like I'm working on this, or like we just talk music, or like talk gear, or like just production styles or tips or tricks, or like hey, I tried this out, you should try it out, it'd be cool. Like I found a lot of my inspiration in the past year, working with other guys, and like just communicating with other guys, and just kind of talking shop about music. Like that's been, at least for me, that's probably been the main way that I've kind of like stayed inspired. Because too, I might hear K9 do something, and I'll be like, oh, that's super dope, and it might inspire me to work on some shit.
Right.
Like
Right. Right.
even if it's something totally different than what he did, but I just might hear some like somebody I know doing some dope shit, and I'm like, okay, I got to do some dope shit. It
Yeah,
inspires me to kind of like be better.
Yeah.
for sure. I feel that.
Definitely. For me, I just try to like every day I'm just trying to make like better beats than the the day before, basically.
Right.
And what's been happening to me lately is like I'm just falling into like sections of like months where I'm just working on like one style, just specifically one style. Like I'll just
Right.
go hard on the drill for like 2 weeks and then I'll get sick of it. And then I'll switch it up to like a different style, more the trap style. And then like I'll do that for a while. And then I'm always like going back and forth on genres. But like a couple of the ones that I really like are like drill right now, because I feel like you can make like
Yep.
so many different like variations of drill right now. Like you can use trap melodies on a drill beat and do like a whole pop smoke or a UK thing. Or also right now the Lil Baby, Lil Durk scene. So I've been doing a lot of beats like those. Just like really aggressive beats for like Toronto artists right now.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to make.
Yeah, that's dope.
That's real dope. That's like, it's funny you say that too, because I kind of get in that mode too, where like anytime I sit down, like I usually come in blank slate, like no idea in my head,
Right.
because 9 times out of 10, if I have an idea already in my head, if it doesn't come out sonically the way I hear it, then I don't like it.
Right.
So like
Yeah,
I
I feel
put
that.
more pressure on myself to be like, oh, like yeah, that pad is cool, or yeah, that piano is cool, but it's not what I heard in my head, so it's not right.
Right.
Exactly.
So I'll sit down with like a blank slate every time, but I'll go through kind of like you said, like a week or two of making, you know, maybe stuff that's more aggressive. And then all of a sudden my brain kind of gets tired of that, and then
Right.
things aren't kind of working out. And then it's like, oh, it's because I need to switch things up. And then I'll do 2 weeks of like, you know, down tempo R&B, you know,
Right.
and then it's, you know, and then I'll move into something that's maybe more pop. And then, you know, and then maybe it's a combination of two things, you know, I'm very similar to you in that way, where it's like, I kind of like ride it till the wheels fall off.
Right.
Yeah,
And, you know,
sure.
and then I move to something else,
Right.
and then I'll end up coming back to what I was originally doing, you know, like the next month or 2 months later.
Right.
And when you let it happen organically like that,
Right.
you'll find yourself being more productive over time.
And
Yeah,
like
for sure.
you look at the beats over time and you're just getting better and better and better at
Yeah.
that genre, you know?
Because you figure out what works for you and what doesn't.
Right.
Definitely.
And you can trust
Yeah.
your gut.
Right.
Yeah, for me, I feel like I'm inspired quite often by new music, like just new techniques. Like I heard that Body song by Russ Millions and Tion Wayne. And I
Yeah.
heard them with a rim shot instead of a hi-hat.
Yeah.
And I was like, geez, I gotta make at least a couple drill beats with something.
Let me try that style out.
Yeah. And switch out the hi-hat for something that's not so normal, you could say.
Yeah, that's why I like drill the most right now. It's so different. Like you'll never expect like when you're listening to a drill beat, it's never like the same over the whole beat. It's always changing. It's always crazy.
It's very progressive.
Right.
As far as like, it's not just like, okay, here's, you know, your first verse, and here's your hook, and here's your second verse, which is basically the same as, you know, the first 16 bars, and then you do it's almost like it's very much like a lot of like heavier like metal music, where if you listen to it, like, you know, you got the verse and you got the hook, and then it changes into the second verse, but it's really not, because it's more like a bridge, and then it goes back to the hook, but that hook is completely different sonically from the first hook, and it's just like it's this progression throughout that like continues to build. And I've noticed that a lot with drill too, where it's like it's almost like, okay, like let's just throw all the rules out the window. You know, and just kind of go off of feel. It's like a lot of the patterns in sound selection might be similar, but it's never the same.
No,
exactly.
Yeah. As you were talking about how it like completely breaks all the boundaries, I've noticed that like since I've been making more drill, I've been experimenting more even in other genres. I'm not afraid to like widen the bass, because in drill they're like stereo separating the bass, which is something that they would never do before, and now they're doing it. So like it's just whatever sounds good and feels good, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And you can, and like Solaris said, you know, like using, you know, a rim to like as a hi-hat, it's like there's a lot of fun in using something that's conventional in an unconventional way, where it's like, okay, this sound usually occupies this space in the frequency or in the spectrum of things. It's like, what if I use this instead?
Right.
It's like, it's a little jarring, it's a little different, but it's going to catch the ear. And if you can do it right, then it's going to work.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. All right. So what got you guys into music? Like, what was the first ever interaction with the DAW that you guys have had, and give me a little rundown on what that was like and how that felt to cook up for the first time, you know?
It was, for me, it was kind of crazy, right? Because when I got started, it was like 2004, which was like my freshman year of college. So this was pre everyone, you know, having a laptop, everybody being able to just kind of like get online, you download some software, and then boom, you're off to the races. Like, you kind of had to have the real deal shit. So so when I got to college, I started kind of running around with guys in the local music scene, and there's this producer who was kind of really doing it at the independent level, and also kind of it was right when he was starting to kind of get some major placements too. His name was Marcus Dietrich, and he kind of took me in and became my mentor. And, like, you know, fast forward now 16 years, he's, you know, my best friend. But I remember I got invited to a studio session at his spot one time, and it was always something that I was like really interested in. You know, growing up, you know, grew up in a house with a lot of music, you know, spanning all kinds of genres and everything. But, you know, when I was like 9-10, like hip hop really kind of got embedded in me when I heard Doggy Style album. You know, I'm like 9-10 years old, and, you know, that intro hits and it's that crazy bass line, and I'm like, what is this? And it's just, then Lady Array just goes off. So I'm like, you know, so then I went back and listened to Chronic, and then I was listening to Big, and then I was listening to, you know, Dog Pound and Pac and like all these other things. So, but Marcus was like actually like producing records. So I'm like, man, if this guy who lives in the same small town as I do can do it, like, maybe I can do it too. So I like I said, I got invited over to his spot for a session. And during the session, me and him are just kind of chopping it up, you know, I'm asking kind of vague questions. And then he mentioned to me that he needed some new records to sample, because he'd like been through his entire record collection like 50 times. And I was like, I'm thinking in my head, like, man, I'm sitting on like 100 records at the house. Like, this is my opportunity to like present value, right? So I tell him, I'm like, man, I got a bunch of records. He was like, word? He's like, what are you doing next week? Can you come over here and bring some? I was like, hell yeah. So we spent the next like 3 or 4 weeks, 1 day a week. I would go over to his spot, bring like X amount of records till we ran through all of them. And, you know, and I would just watch him work and do everything. And then, you know, fast forward a little bit, he's the one who gave me my first copy of Logic, because you could have like, I think 3 licenses on an account. And this is back when Logic costs like $1,000, or maybe it was down to 500 at that point, but I'm pretty sure it was maybe still 1,000. And he didn't charge me a dime for it. He was like, man, I got you, loaded it onto my Mac. And then he sold me my first keyboard. It was a Roland Phantom X6. And then that was like my first foray into everything. And then but I was like assisting him for, I want to say 5-6 years, probably like 5 years, like assisting him with mixing, because he hated mixing. And you know, he would ask me my opinion on stuff, because he figured out I had a pretty decent ear. And then I assisted him, and then it was probably like I said, like 5 years before I opened my own spot and started engineering for other artists. And then, you know, they'd be recording their project, and they'd be like, man, I need another beat or two. And I'd be like, oh, hey, by the way, I got some beats, and I'd play some beats for him, and then, you know, end up with a placement or two. So like, that was my whole thing. So like, I was engineer first, and then, but I always wanted to be in the production game. but coming up under Marcus, like his shit was so clean, you know, and he was working with, you know, the Locks and Trey Songs and doing all these like bigger records and these like super dope records, Young Jeezy. You know, he's working with Hit Boy. And I'm like, I can't present anything until I get somewhat close to that, because anything other than that's going to be a disappointment to me. So, you know, I spent years kind of like honing the craft before I even like played a beat for anybody else.
Right.
And then it just kind of all transitioned from there. And then, you know, luckily I've been doing it ever since.
Nice.
Yeah.
And hopefully I'll continue to be able to do it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, definitely.
As for me, I think I got into it just the summer as I was getting out of high school, I believe. It was me and a couple of my friends, and we used to always like just freestyle like outside in the summer, and we would just freestyle on whatever beats we would find on YouTube, Kodak Black type beat, Migos type beat, right? So then it came to the point where like we were like, damn, maybe we should like actually get into this and start like recording stuff. So we're like, how are we gonna get the beats? You know, or like, we don't have like that much money at that time to buy all these beats. So my friend's like, yo, this is what like big people like Metro Boomin and all these guys use. And he showed me Fruity Loops. He showed me FL Studio. So then I think it was like FL11 at that time or something like that. And I eventually got my hands onto it, and I just started like making beats, trying to make type beats was the big thing. Like when you first get a DAW, I think the hardest part is like how to navigate around the DAW and like get to know all the buttons, all the different sections, because you like it's actually pretty daunting when you look at something and you like the DAW and you don't know what it is, especially like when you're looking at a new DAW and you're like stuck on Fruity Loops and you go to a studio and it's like Ableton or something, and like, holy shit, I don't know what the hell these things are.
It's so funny too how they all do the same thing, but they do it in a different way, to where you're like, all right, like I've got Logic down, I've got Ableton down. I can get by in FL, but when I open up Pro Tools, I'm lost. I'm like, I don't know what, because I never cared to learn it. I just didn't really care. I did like, it was just, it's so funny. I'm like, I know it does the same stuff, but I'm like, it's it just seems way too, they make things way too difficult in there. I swear. Like they do it on purpose, you know?
Some people say FL Studio is like really complicated, but like me and Solaris are like pretty native to FL Studio. So like, I don't know. I know I like the back of my hand, you know, like when someone asks me like, yo, what's the command? What's the shortcut for this? I actually don't even like know it to tell you. It's just muscle memory. I just, when I'm in my workflow, it's like, I have to actually think about the shortcut when I have to tell someone. Like, it's literally just muscle memory at this point. It's just, you have to like put in the hours. That's how you're going to get good, basically. It's just keep making beats, you know, keep doing what you want to do.
Exactly. And honestly too, if you know one, like you'll pick up another fairly quickly, because I started out in Logic. I used Logic for years and years and years, and then I got bored with it because they weren't updating it, and it was like Logic 9 forever, and I was like, man, forget this, like I'm switching over to something different. And I was in LA at my buddy Donut's studio, and he was using Ableton at the time. And I was like, man, Ableton just looks so crazy. Like, I don't know if I'll like, he goes, Tim, I swear to you, give yourself an hour with it. Don't go back to Logic. He sent me like a tutorial on it. Like, he's like, watch his tutorial, get into it. Don't go back to Logic and you'll get it. And I was like, man, I don't know. I got back home from the LA trip. I got Ableton, loaded it up, watched the video, and he was right. In an hour, I had figured out enough to where I'm like, okay, I can make a beat in here. And then after just a week of using it, knew it like the back of my hand. I was like, this is incredible. You know what I mean? Like,
for sure.
It's funny, you guys, like, just real quick little like random story. Like K9 was mentioning how you guys are real proficient in FL, and like I know a lot of people are, and FL's almost like become like this huge standard, right? Like like a lot of people, a lot of guys who produce use FL.
Right.
I'm old enough to remember back when, so the A&Rs used to send out these sheets, right? You could get these sheets of who was looking for tracks, like who was looking for beats, who's looking for full songs, and it had the artist and the label and who to contact. Like if you were kind of like running certain circles, you get a hold of this. And I'm old enough to remember at the top, they used to put no Fruity Loop beats.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Because Fruity Loops just sounded cheap, and it had a certain sound to it that was just real, just kind of like, it was like almost like a toy, right?
Wow.
Like, and it was before VSTs and soft synths and were really sounding and competing with analog gear like they are now. And so it's just so funny to be able to see that just completely flip on its head, to where FL is just like this full-fledged just beast of a system that you can make big hit records on, and guys have been making big hit records on for, you know, over a decade now, you know. So it's just so funny to like to have known that, and then just see how stupid that looks now.
Yeah, for sure. I think what originally drew me to FL Studio is just the simplicity of the drum sequencing with those. It's just pretty simple. And I think I had started out dabbling with GarageBand, and as soon as I switched to FL, the drum sequencing was just so much easier. In my opinion.
You guys have a leg up on the drum sequence. Like that step sequencer is just so dope. I was like, you can just click on the, and it just goes. I was like, man, that is so, and how everybody else hasn't just jumped on it and done it. I don't know why, because I feel like that is what draws people initially to FL, because it makes it, you guys were talking about just ease of use. Like it just makes it so easy to be like, okay, boom, I got my drums in, and they're solid, and you can get them to smack in there too. FL's just got this sound engine where you can just push the drums crazy. And Ableton's kind of the same way, but FL's just on a different planet when it comes to that, for whatever reason.
It's those legacy effects. If you're listening and you don't know, you gotta enable your legacy effects, and then you'll be able to turn up that 808 to like smack. That's the sauce,
That's
the
kind of going off of that. Like, what are some of your guys's like favorite tools that you're using right now? Whether it's like VST, like instrument, or like it can be mixing, it can be outboard gear, it could be whatever. Like, what are some of like your favorite like things that you like, you kind of your go-tos right now?
Solaris, you want to go first?
Yeah, I think for me, Omnisphere, obviously, it's just so many sounds, and you got to filter through a bunch of garbage until you find some nice sounds. But I've been using that a lot. Also, Soundtoys Effects Rack. I got that a little while ago, and it's got some crazy. Oh yeah.
I got the old school 6-disc before it was
That's
the download.
That's crazy.
Hours and hours. I've got it and Trillion over there, which is another one. But Omnisphere has always kind of been king.
Yeah. Also, Soundtoys Effects Rack. There's a ton of effects in there, and just mixing plugins that you can do a lot with. Yeah.
For me, I don't know. My go-to, like, if you were to ask me my go-to plugin, it's probably a soft clipper, because I'm putting that on every beat. But like, I've been actually messing around with soft clippers lately, like the knobs. I don't just leave it how it is anymore. I'll try like messing around with it. But there's a free VST that I got recently that I've been putting on like all my beats. It's called Fresh Air. Have you guys heard of it? Fresh Air?
I've heard of that one. Yeah.
So I'll put it on like my drum bus, or even sometimes on my master. Say like if my beat is sounding a little flat, or like the hi-hats, I want them to get a little be a little more crispier, I'll throw on Fresh Air, and it's free. So you guys should go grab that.
Free's the best. When you find a like, I've downloaded tons of free ones over the years, but like when you find, and a lot of them will not be that great, but when you find one that's like solid, you're like, I don't know why you're free, but I'm going to take it and I'm going to run with it.
Right.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's what I've been doing. I've been actually putting on every single beat. I just like how it sounds. It's just got a nice high-end sound.
That's perfect. That's perfect. I'm
Yeah.
as far as my mixing is like, I use a lot of just UAD stuff.
Yeah.
Like a lot of universal audio. Probably like 90% of the plugs I use for mixing come from UAD, mixed with like some waves. And then like you said, Sound Toys are dope. Like they've got just like a bunch of stuff. I mean, I'd have to like go through like my list of like plugs to see. Over the years, I've gotten so many, and it's like I don't, like you said, it's kind of like muscle memory. It's like, okay, I'm putting this on this, I'm putting that on that, putting this over here, like. But yeah, a lot of UAD stuff, and then Omnisphere, Expand.
Expand is clutch.
It's a sleeper.
Yo,
too is
for the money that you are paying for, you are getting a lot more worth out of it. I swear to God.
And and also mixing. The other thing I use a lot of is because mentioning Expand is the Air stuff, the Pro Tools stuff that they've made like available through VST. So I use their lo-fi thing. I use their flanger chorus, couple other things. And then as far as other, like, I'm trying to think of another like instrument VST. Outboard gear, my Prophet Rev 2. That's my buddy, man. My desktop buddy. But the Arturia stuff is great. All of their emulations of whether it's the the CS80 or any of the Juno stuff, like I'll use a lot of those things too.
Right.
Yeah.
And samples. I love samples. I still love sampling. Like as much as they take, you got, dealing with like clearance hassles and like all that kind of stuff. Like there's nothing like just a dope sample. Like you just can't get around it,
Definitely.
So one thing that I actually like emphasize for especially people who are like new to producing and stuff is like try not to like get third-party drum kits. Try to like actually invest in your drum kits if you can, because like that's how you get like the crispy sounding, like that's how you get your drums to smack. Like I know for a long time I used to get like third-party drum kits and stuff like that, but like now I actually invest in my sounds, and that's like one thing that I've noticed, like that's helped a lot. And I hear other producers talk about it too. It's like you might get like a couple drum kits that really like level up your sound, and that's only going to help you be more creative too. It's gonna, like, once you're hearing good stuff, you're gonna want to continue to get better. That's where I'm kind of at right now. I'm just gonna get better every day. The drums, the melodies, all around.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's the main goal, is just to keep, for me at least, is just to keep moving forward and keep improving. I mean, I don't necessarily want to plateau and just make the same beats over and over and over again. I want to keep building and keep finding new sounds and new inspiration and kind of pushing the envelope a little bit.
Right.
Yeah, you gotta keep it fun, right? Like, because if it's not fun, like, what are you doing it for? Like, you can go do a million other things to make a living or do whatever with, and So like, I always told myself, like, if I'm ever not having fun while doing this, then I'll just then I know that, like, I'm done. Like maybe
for sure.
At that point you kind of know, and kind of like doubling back to what Kenan was saying, sound selection is
right.
Like, and as you continue to grow and continue to kind of get deeper and deeper and get more years under your belt, like you'll start to really pick up on that, and find, and you'll keen in on sounds, and sounds change over the years. The type of drums now that are working might not be what work in 5-10 years from now, and going back, it was kind of like a different sound too. But at the same time, like, you'll know how to find them, or you'll know where to go to get them, and then you'll know how to make your own, and kind of like develop, get into more of creating your own sonics. But there's no shortage now of back when I started, it was, I've got these drum sounds, I've got drum sounds too, let's swap, let's trade. You would trade drum sounds. It's like, whether you were sampling them off records, or you know, you knew somebody who was an engineer at this studio, and they snuck in on a session and, you know, basically bounced all the drums out and stole them and then put them in a folder and gave them to your buddy, who gave them to a buddy who gave them to you. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like that was like when you came across, like, it's like, I can't remember who gave them to me, but it was like, oh, hey, I've got, like, you know, I've got some Timbaland drums, and they're actually from a Tim session, or they're, you know, they're Dr. Luke drums, and they're actually from a Luke session, or they're, you know, whoever, you know, and then you would get bootleg, like Dre drums, or like, you know, drums from whoever. But like, it was before people were, you know, selling kits. So like, you know, you would have to kind of like figure out a way, and then you would, you know, beef them up as you needed. Now you've got access to guys, you know, producers are out there selling their drums. It's like, these are the drums I use on these records. You know, if you want them, you know, you pay a price and you get them. So it's a lot easier to find those top tier sounds. But like I said, you just got to invest in them. You know,
definitely. Just invest, you know,
because that's what's going to separate you.
For sure.
And like, when you got high quality sounds, you don't have to worry about the mix too much. Maybe just like stylistic things, but like they're usually like really clean, like high quality sounds. So you don't have to like focus too much on the mix. You can do your thing, make them smack a little harder, and that's about it. Like, I highly suggest investing in your sounds.
Sure. You don't have to mix them to get them to sound good. You just have to mix them to fit in the context of the music you're making.
Just level it.
To whether it's leveling or EQing, because you're like, okay, now it's clashing with this other sound I use, so let me carve this out a little bit, or the vocal needs to sit here, so let me, like, you know, but again, some guys don't pay attention to that, and that's fine, but they don't. But and that's fine, because, and it works, and it's cool, because, you know, producers aren't always mixing engineers. I just so happen to be a mix engineer first. So that became part of my process. Like, you know, I spend extra time mixing because it is that way. And I love being able to send somebody a 2-track and then record to it and fall in love with that 2-track mix, not because, you know, they just, you know, get demo-itis and they hear it over and over again, but because it stands out next to all the other songs that they recorded back to, where they're like, I love this song, it's ready to go, it's going to make the project.
Definitely.
I actually focus on the mix a lot. Like, that's what I've been doing. Like, in this last month, I've been working on like my drum bus chain. I've been working on my like mastering chain, and it's like changing like every other day. Like, I can't make up my mind. Like, it's like, that is the most challenging part for me, but it's what I'm trying to get best at right now, actually.
It'll evolve. You know? Like, my master chain now looks different than it did, you know, a year ago. And, which looked different from the previous 3 to 5 years. You know, it just changed because you learn new stuff. You learn, you're like, oh, I never thought to do that. Or you see somebody else doing something, you're like, ooh, let me add that in and see if it works. You know, if it doesn't, cool, you just, you know, push it off to the side. But if this works here, and then this that you learn from here works, and then you kind of like, and then it helps you craft.
A lot of trial and error, so you just got to put the hours in, you know.
Oh yeah, it's all trial and error. It's all, you know.
For sure. So do you guys want to get into this beat critique here and take a listen to some beats?
Yeah, man.
Definitely.
Let's see what these kids sent us.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so I'll play one from the first pack. It's looking a little. Okay. So this is, this is Chef Boyardee 176 BPM by JXNN Prod and One Project X. I think it's 2 people they collab, I believe. So let's play it. Make sure the volumes are all up.
Ayo, Jen, make it boy go.
guys think?
That 808's knocking, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think it's the
Booming.
spins 808.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Booming.
Yeah, leveling was all good.
Right.
It sounded dope. Yeah, you know, just when you've got that kind of honed in, like the bounce was cool.
Right.
Like
right.
the bounce was kind of, it wasn't anything to like that I haven't already heard before.
Yeah, it's pretty trap.
You know, it's
trap stuff.
pretty standard trap.
Yeah.
You know, if I heard that, I'd be like, okay, you know, I hear a bunch of beats like that all the time.
Right.
But that's not to take away from the fact that he did a good job and it's a dope beat, and I can hear, you know, X amount of artists on that, you know, if they would.
Right.
It's just kind of cutting through all the other beats that kind of sound like that to be able to get that opportunity to get that person on it.
Yeah, definitely.
I noticed he started with like the drums hitting like right off the start, and it's something I'm kind of exploring right now too, because I feel like it just brings like the energy for certain artists. Actually like doing that, like maybe like an aggressive artist like 42 Doug, like there, or even Lil Baby, like some of their beats will start off like that, but I think you got to do it the right way. Like
Definitely.
yeah, like you have to like do it in a right way where when it drops back in, it's like still catching everyone's attention. It's not like the same.
If you're ever in a meeting with like with A&Rs playing music for them too, they love when you just start off smacking, because like they're 9 times out of 10 they're not musically inclined or in an artist's frame of mind, so they could give a fuck about an intro. They're just like you know, just get it going right now. Whenever you're just playing them back to back to back and they're hitting right off the gate, like it kind of helps keep their attention a little bit better. So like you say, in certain situations, it's a really smart move.
Right.
Yeah, I think it can bring some crazy energy to you if you do it right off the bat. Everybody's like, whoa, what is that? Press play and it's already like thumping.
Right. Yeah, the mix.
Energy.
Yeah, the mix was good. I think it was solid. Just maybe like try to work on your structuring and just how you're like bringing stuff in and the flow of the track, because I think flow is like a really important like element in in a beat. It's like it has to be able to like, the artist has to easily be able to just hop on the beat. It shouldn't feel like there's any like obstacle for them. It just has to feel effortless.
Yeah, definitely. Overall though, I think it was, for what it is, I think it's not bad.
Yeah, it was solid.
Yeah. Definitely solid.
Prod by Brody. He's one of my actual producer friends. I always send loops over to him. He sends me loops back, and you know, we're gonna definitely get some hits on the way. It's just about a matter of time. So we'll go with his first.
All right.
Hey yo, Brody.
So that was Brody, Pluto 112 BPM. What do you guys think?
Right off the bat, I like the analog sounding synth. I think it's pretty. It's got a nice retro feel to it.
Right. Yeah.
The musically, the sound selection, I'm a big fan of. I think melodically it was awesome. I loved the synths that he chose. I'm a sucker for those types of
Yeah,
sounds.
yeah.
Right.
The only thing, and not saying that they were bad, I wanted the drums to be different.
Right.
Yeah.
That was the only thing. Like, they were fine. They were
Yeah.
fine, but like, me personally, like what I was waiting for was just something kind of a little crazier. And instead of kind of being that trap bounce.
Right.
But not to take anything away from it, because I mean, those drums work in there too just fine.
Yeah.
That's just me personally.
Who
Because,
would
you
you
know,
guys?
at the end of the day, music's subjective. You know what I mean?
Right.
But like, overall, dope. Like, super dope.
Yeah.
Who would you guys hear on like that type of vibe melody?
If he would have taken the drums in the direction I heard, it would have been more of something for the weekend.
Right. Yeah.
Like, then I think that would have something with just like a little more movement in tempo to it.
Right.
As is, I mean, it almost like walked that line into like the Travis type area.
Yeah. I was getting like Travis
I mean?
vibes.
Yeah, I was getting some Travis vibes on that. As is, like, with the way he did it though. So, which I mean, at the end of the day, works too. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, for sure.
That one was solid.
Yeah, I like that
All
one.
right. And then let me just go back so I know who sent which beat.
Yeah.
Okay. So I believe we have one by Beats by Sav.
Yeah.
And it's Mike X Sav. And I think the beat is called Leroy. So let's give that a listen. All right. So that was Mike and Sav and their beat Leroy. What do you guys think?
I like I like the hat snare bounce. I think that rhythm is pretty solid for what it is.
Yep. Melody was super dope.
Yeah.
I like that. Only thing that bothered me was the kick.
Yeah.
I didn't like the kick.
Yeah.
You get a more punchy kick in there, and maybe make the pattern a little more not too much more intricate. Like, you don't want to go crazy on a kick,
Right.
but like make it a little more, give it a little more movement, and then you've got that'll take that record over the top.
Right. Yeah. I like the melody a lot. I think maybe EQ some of the lows out the melody a little more. Like, you don't want to take out too much character out of the melody, but like enough so like the 808 has like its space.
Yeah, you gotta give that stuff room to breathe.
Yeah, for sure. So just like mixing tips, the melody is like really good. I feel like you can catch an artist with just like the melody, and then like if the drums are like almost doing like what they're supposed to do, you're good. Like, you don't even need to be like perfect.
Yeah. Like I said, swap the kick out and you're good.
Right.
Like that record's good to go.
Right. Yeah. All right. So should we go on to the next one?
Yeah.
I'm not sure who this is from. But it's called Drill. I don't know if this is the guy's name. I think the guy's name is SATVAGE at gmail.com. So listen to his beat now. It's called Drill. guys think about that one?
Melodically, I was digging it off the bat. It's kind of dark, and I like some darker sounding melodies for sure.
Yep.
Drums surprised me actually. They came in pretty hard. 808 is like there's one note that's I think overlapping with another one.
Yeah, I think I heard that too.
Yeah.
Or it could have been like the melody was just like peeking through, like we said before,
Yeah.
like the low end.
Yeah.
It could have been that you didn't EQ it.
Yeah.
Maybe, I'm not sure. But
Could have been that. Could have just been, instead of the 808 being monophonic, it was poly, and it was just bleeding over into the next note instead of cutting off.
Yeah.
But like Slayer said, melody was cool. The drums were smacking.
Right.
And I loved the bounce. Could have used a better mix on that low end, better mix on the 808. And like we said, if it wasn't bleeding into it, the mix was conveying that it did and throwing the ear off. I liked the bending of the 808. It was kind of like it was like a different way to do it, which is super dope. And it was kind of like walking the line between, okay, I've got this kind of like dope drill bend in the 808, but the drums are kind of like more trap than drill.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
And then other than that, like, I don't know how the beat progresses, but it needed a little bit more kind of variation coming out of that into okay, cool. Like, my kind of rule of thumb or my like advice usually is like every 4 to 8 bars, you want to introduce something new.
Yeah.
Whether that's bringing something in or taking something out.
Right.
Like you want to do a change. It can be super subtle. It doesn't have to be anything too major. And not saying that he doesn't do that in this beat, but like that's kind of one of my main things is you want to introduce something new, whether it's by addition or subtraction, just to give the listener a subconscious change in what they're hearing. They might not really notice it, but they feel it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. What was I gonna say? I was gonna say something, but yeah, structuring. Yeah, I feel like you have like the melody and the counter melody, but sometimes like how you structure your drums, like the intro, how it comes in, like it can totally change the beat. So like mess around with the structuring a little bit. Like don't always just be set on the standard structure, try to do some weird stuff. You'll find some like crazy, new wave. You never know.
Yeah. And as crazy and as minimal as it sounds, like the structure of a record can completely change the difference between an okay record and a hit record.
Right. 100%.
Like just introducing things in a different way. And there's a million different ways you can introduce things in a song or just or structure and do things in a song. But like, I remember I was working with a writer one time on a record for Pia Mia. And it was one of those things where it was like, okay, this record's dope, but there's something not right about it. And then all it took was taking this sound out of the hook and introducing it in the bridge, and then adding or taking something else out in the verse, or maybe adding something in the verse. And it was like, oh my God, there it is. And like dropping the drums out at a different point. And it was oh my God, there it is. You know what I mean? So it's little things like that. But you don't really know that until you've got an artist on it or a writer on it. It's just an example of how the format of a record can kind of like really make a big difference.
For sure.
Right. 100%. Yep.
And then kind of an overarching tip for everybody who's sent music in, which, awesome that you guys sent stuff in, and, congrats on, taking that plunge and making music and making good music. When you do send in music for things like this or to A&Rs, in those emails, include your producer name, include the name, like clear as day. Like there should be no, like K9 shouldn't have to be looking at these and being like, I don't know who this is from. Right. That because if somebody likes it, like, who's this from? I don't know. Like, okay, on to the next one. You know what I mean? Like that's whether it's in the email you send, whether it's in the beat, you know, make sure it's clear the title of the beat, what you know the producer's name is. You know, BPM helps too with artists, because if they're going to record to the 2-track and they load it up and it's just like, oh, what BPM is this? Oh, their engineer didn't have to figure it out. It's like, oh, there it is right there. Boom, and they're off to the races. But make sure, you know, that these things are in the files. Like that one was just called drill. It should say who it's produced by, drill, whatever BPM. Like you don't have to have the BPM in, but it helps. But who you are is important.
Definitely.
Yeah, for me, I always put, like, I'll do the name of the beat, I'll do the BPM right after, and then I'll do the credits. So who's on it, like me and let's say Solaris Tim, credit all of us. And then that's all you pretty much need. And make sure you have like your at, maybe like your Instagram at, if that's what you use, or whatever you use the most, just put it in there.
Yeah, definitely. And include, and in that, in like I said, if you're sending by email, include your website, your contact info, your socials, like all that. So there's no excuse for these people that, like, if they want to get a hold of you to either work on something or get a hold of you for, you know, a beat for a project, you've given them every single avenue to be able to get a hold of you, and there's no excuse for them to just not get a hold of you, and then all of a sudden the record comes out that you
right.
You know, don't give them a reason to be like, oh, we didn't know how to get a hold of you, so you know, we just threw it out there. You know, it's like, nah, man, I gave you my email, my IG, my Twitter, I gave you my phone number, I gave you whatever. You know, I gave you my website, I gave you all these things. Like, make sure you're giving that info so there's no question as to who sent that in and who produced it.
Yep. Like you might not notice that the track might come out and like the person didn't contact you. Maybe they couldn't find you. Actually, that's happened to me once. They literally didn't know who I was. And
it happens.
It happens. It literally happens.
Especially if it's not labeled, for sure.
It was my first placement too. I didn't even know it came out, and then I found out after. So I had to clean up all the business after the fact. So that's like a mistake. I learned it early in my career. So like, always label your stuff. You know, you want to take your credit. You know, always take your credit.
For sure.
Yeah. There's no excuse for not contacting people now. Like there's a million different ways to contact people. It's not like it was 20 years ago when it's like, oh, you know, I gave an A&R a CD, and then they don't, you know, I forgot to write my phone number on it, so they don't, they don't know how to call me, or they don't know, I didn't write my email, so they don't have my email. You know, now it's like, I've got all these ways for you to get a hold of me, and we're sending it via a way where you can just respond right back.
Right.
So, you know, it's just it's little things like that can make or break a big situation for you.
Right.
Definitely.
So I think we've gone through 3. Should we do one more?
Yeah,
one more. Okay. Let's see. So we have Slick Beats with a Z. Slick Beats. So we'll listen to. It's called Wolf on It. Oh no, wait. I'm not sure actually what it's called. Slick Beat. Yeah, he might be a producer still. So 167 BPM. Let's listen to it.
Yeah.
Slick on these tracks.
What do you guys think about that one?
There's a lot going on with the 808s, that's for sure. But I think melodically, it wasn't too interesting. I mean, it was okay, I would say.
It wasn't bad. Yeah. I
Yeah.
think like we were talking about before, how like he was like we introduced like different stuff. I think he actually kind of did that. He probably had
Oh,
that
yeah.
in mind. So like he like dropped some of the drums, and then like the
Mm-hmm.
808 had like a delayed start, which I like that kind of vibe.
Yeah.
And then the melody, it wasn't bad. It could have been a little more interesting, but it was solid, not bad, solid.
Yeah.
It was definitely I liked that it was different.
Right, it was
Yeah.
different. It was
Like
different.
the bounce was dope. It was different
Right.
bounce. I was like, okay, this is all right out the gate. I was like, this is cool.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I liked his use of the perks in the background, kind of
Right,
almost acting like a hat. Like that's a dope little
Right.
trick.
Mhm.
For me, really, it just came down to the mix.
Yeah,
I feel like we mix that a little bit better, and then get that melody to, you know, like you guys, you know, you wanted to be a little more interesting. I feel like through a mix you could, you know, adding certain effects, doing certain things, adding a couple more little things to polish it off. And then I feel like it's a totally different record, because it will bring more excitement out of it.
Definitely.
I felt like the drums were exciting from the bounce, but everything else was just kind of like underneath it, to where you're like, okay, I'm not really as juiced as I should be about this record.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
I think like one suggestion is for like when you have your 808, I don't know if you're in FL Studio, but you can make the 808 a little shorter. And I found like making the 808 a little shorter actually kind of gives it that like punch and that bounce, and it separates it from like the melody a little. I've been doing that a little bit right now, like shorten your 808s a little. It might help, especially when you're using like the 808 a lot. Like a shorter 808 will be better.
If you're going crazy with 808s, like cutting it shorter, like you said, gives everything else more room to breathe.
Right.
If not, then you're just hammering that 808 through the whole thing. And the listener's just like, what is going on? I don't have time to enjoy all these other little things going on, you know? And the artist too, it's like, okay, I just got to ride on top of this 808 the whole time. So doing those little cuts or just shortening the 808 is something that'll help kind of get your beat might sound a little empty sometimes when you're just working on it, but at the same time, if you take an acapella and you throw it over it, or if a rapper does jump on it, you're like, oh, he's filling up that space now anyway.
It almost has to be a little bit open.
Exactly. You know, and we all do it sometimes, right? Like we work on beats and we're like, wait, we need to fill up more space or occupy more space. And then before you know it, you're like, well, I've ran out of room for things.
Right.
You know, like I don't like, where's the artist going to go?
100%.
But that just comes with time. Like you get to a point where you're like, okay, I know it's done. Like even though it might sound a little unfinished, it's done. And then you can move on to the next one. Some people get that super early. It took me a while to really hone in on that. To where I'm like, okay, I know that I know when a beat's done. Usually it's when I got to think about something. If I'm like, if I'm listening to it and I'm like trying to think of what it needs, I'm like, wait, I need to stop, because it's probably done at that point.
Right. 100%.
You know, and I can move on to the next thing. Maybe I can come back to it later and something else just spurs in and I'm like, okay, no, it does need that. But you know, you gotta think from the perspective of like, okay, artist is gonna hop on it, he's gonna occupy space. I gotta give him room to shine and that sort of thing.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, we have less than a minute on this Zoom call, so I guess we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Tim, for coming on. Thanks to everybody that watches this, and hope you guys learned a thing or two. Yeah.
Thanks for having me, guys. I really appreciate it. I hope I kind of, you know, gave a little bit of what I know to the community here. So.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Peace, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Talk to you guys soon.
Later.
Peace.